Roger, Roger. Beer money. Get a 95 Alaska, isn't it? Big brother, you all have a good one. I'm going to get back on the pen and get on this old 23. I'm strapped only 23 tables on this old line. Oh, man, that's right?
Okay, so it's the next day. So let's see what else we can do to this poor radio here. Alright, so yesterday we kind of did an unboxing and kind of checked it out a little bit. We we converted it so that it's getting all the channels there. We put the Digimic on here and checked that out a little bit. So I kind of wanted to wait to put the cooling fans on, and the reason I did is because I wanted to read through everything. I wanted to check it out. It's kind of why I wanted to just kind of do the unboxing, because I really wanted to just take some time to kind of sit around and just mess around with it. But I didn't want to sit around and play around with it and then have to put it all back in the box and go through all that. So I figured I'd just kind of do an unboxing and just do the conversion, just do all that on camera real quick, or as quick as that can be done anyways. And then that'll give me a chance to kind of mess around with it. So that being said, next I'm going to do the cooling fans. I've had a chance to look those over. One of the complaints that some people have is that the cooling fan wiring kind of runs in these grooves here. So you've got the fan that bolts up like this here, but the wires run, you know, on these grooves, and some people are a little bit concerned maybe that the wire could catch something, or they just don't kind of like how that is with it maybe rubbing on the metal or over time or whatever. So I've kind of come up with a solution to that. There's some heat shrink wrap tubing that you use for electrical wiring here. This seems to be about the same size. It'll just barely kind of go over this connector here. So it'll go. But you're going to want to cut this piece short. You only need it, you know, if your fan's bolting here, you know, and it goes in there, you're only going to need it, you know, about half the length of what this is, just to kind of go into one of these channels there. So you really don't even have to shrink this around the wiring when you're done. You could if you wanted to, but you know, it's not going anywhere, and you could kind of move it around and adjust it a little bit if you wanted to. So anyways, that's going to be the plan. And I got a couple things I need to take care of real quick, and then we'll get to that. Stick with me. Okay, we're back. I'm back. Okay, so once again, I guess I could turn it off and unplug it. You know, since I'm going to be opening it up, all that boring stuff, turn it off, unplug it, disconnect the antenna. Alright. Yeah, like you guys don't leave your radios plugged in and open when you're working on them. Okay. So let's see here. Alright. So put the fan kit in. We need to take the bottom cover off. I already have a couple of screws out of it, so I've only got 2 to take out since I already had it off. Okay. Good little tip is to just kind of lift the radio up a little and just take this front corner of the cover and kind of lay it under there. That way it doesn't fall over or put any strain on this. Okay, so we got one fan here. Let's just empty out our little bag of goodies here. We got a couple of zip ties, some instructions, receipt, some fan grills, and some screws. I'm not a big fan of these particular screws here because they're take a little Allen head to use it, and that's just one more tool that, you know, it'd be nice just to have a Phillips head, but you can replace the screws and get whatever you want. Otherwise, it looks like a pretty nice kit. The fans look and seem pretty decent. Again, I kind of made a mistake. I said the Green Falcon CB. They have an eBay store and also, I believe, a website. That's where the fans came from, the fan kit. And the President Digimic came from the store on eBay called Diddly Deals. So Diddly Deals got me the Digimic, and the fan kit came from Green Falcon CB. And sometimes I just put honorable mentions or tell you what their channels are or where their websites are, because you put links up there and, you know, those things don't last forever and they get broken and messed up. So sometimes it's just better to say who you got it from than post a link. Alright, so we're into this thing here. We got our fan here. Always a good idea to just kind of maybe test fit these screws here. Make sure they thread into all these holes here. I already did that to a couple of them. These very fine threaded, very easy to cross thread in there if you're not careful, so, you know, be wary of that. Again, really easy to cross thread these things in there. I mean, that one's wanting to cross thread in there as it is. I have to put this wrench on here to keep the dang thing straight. Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example of one that almost just got cross-threaded in there, so you really got to be patient and be careful with them, and that's another reason why I'm not a real big fan of this Allen wrench setup here. But and again, it did give a breakdown of all the parts in here, and these screws here. And you know, you may want to get thinner fans, thicker fans, do some other stuff with these fans. These screws are a M3 by 25 millimeter. So you want an M3 by 25 to replace these, or, you know, 25 millimeters the length, so whatever, if you want it shorter, longer, whatever. These will thread in about again, that one wants to cross thread in there just a little bit, that particular hole there, so again, be careful. These things thread in about, half of the way. Not real far, just enough to be snug up against the fan. Okay, well, this one's threaded in a little bit further. One of the other ones I tried wasn't threaded in this far, so. Probably a good idea to take and run these things in and out of the holes again. Check your holes and make sure they're clean. Oh, that sounds like... Anyways, okay. So, the big thing we want to do is see... Here's the grooves here. Excuse me. Here's the grooves here for the fan wires. And I think just taking the shrink tubing and just trimming it down a little bit will probably be pretty good. We'll just square this up on this end here. And let's see. Okay, well, the board's right here. You kind of got to watch where you want to place the fan, you know, like this wire came out of its little route right here. Okay, so like you want to bolt it here, because no, there's no groove here. So you'd want to turn the fan, you know, this way, except, yeah, let's see here. Okay, I guess you would pull the fan out of its route and have the wire coming off the route, because if you put it there's just no way. I mean, you can put one, you'd have to run the wire, I guess you could run it across like that, but I mean, you could put this fan over here and run this one through there. But still, what are you going to do with this fan here, right? Yeah, the only way you're going to get one of these fans to fit in there is you're going to have to pull these wires out of their little route here. So you can bolt the fan up there. Then you can either bring it in through here. So that's what people are kind of complaining about, I guess. You know, so one of the fans really isn't a big deal, and the other one a little bit. So let's just take and put one of these screws in here for this fan here. And we'll put another one in crosswise on the other end here. Okay, these are going in by finger, so that's by hand, that's good. Okay. So let's just see this one here. You really don't need too much heat shrink tubing here. So I'm just going to nibble a little bit more off of this here. Okay, and once we get it slid over that plastic end there, it's a little bit stubborn. This Allen wrench might help poke that through there. Again, it's a little bit stubborn, but it's going. Getting there, believe it or not. Okay, there we go. So there's our shrink tubing. That should lay in there pretty nicely with the cover on there. I mean, we don't even have to heat that up. You could if you wanted to, but oh, let's take this off and heat it up and see how wonderful it is, and if I end up needing to redo it or not. Once again, I think it's just going to be something quick and it turns into this. But just trying to be thorough here. Alright. Let's find a lighter here. And this should be pretty straightforward here, right up against the fan there. This isn't the adhesive line stuff, but it's not going anywhere, so that's okay. Okay. Again, it's a little bit loose on there. I could shrink it on there a little bit more, but I think it'll fit this gap real nice. There's this little channel real nice now. And these fans, I have no idea how good these fans are. I know there's a lot of different, you know, they're 40 by 40 by 20 millimeter, and there's a lot of different of those types of fans out there. So So I don't know how good these are, and I don't know how long they'll last, so, you know, just a FYI on all that. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of tighten this one in place since I know we're good to go. I guess I could put the fan grill on there while I'm at it, right? Because it's supposed to go on there. Duh. Although I really don't have a problem with... These things are so small, I don't know how you're going to get your finger or anything in there, but I guess it's possible. Okay, and these fan grills, they kind of have a standoff where it kind of stands up, and that's the way you're going to want to have it on here. I will probably try and speed some of this up for you. Okay, I need to go check and make sure the camera hasn't choked yet. No, still going. That's amazing. Oh. It's not a horrible camera. It's a Sony a6000. You know, so it's got its good points, but it has a tendency to overheat, and it has a tendency to just do a lot of stuff that you really don't want your camera doing. But it takes pretty good video. And I've had it for, it's old, getting old now, so whatever works. I would just kind of tighten this stuff sort of snug and then just go back, you know, a week or so later after you've used it a few times and just double check them. Because this stuff's kind of plastic, and after this heats up and cools off a few times, I'm sure, you know, between the threads on the screws and the plastic and the aluminum, you know, I'm sure something will give a little bit. And again, you can use one fan on this, which actually the one fan would be optimal in the sense that you wouldn't have to worry about one wire, you know, going kind of weird. But okay, so we have our one fan here. We've got our shrink tubing there. I mean, that fits down in there really nice. Let's see if I can got that film there. So that's a really nice fit there. That worked really well. So that's this shrink tubing. It was just some really cheap, some of that really cheap stuff you get like in a roll at Harbor Freight. And I can't see a size on it, and it wasn't in a package, but it looks like it's either, it looks like it's about a 1/4 inch. It's either 3/16 or a 1/4 inch. I suppose it could be a 5/16, but it looks like it's about a, like I said, it would just barely go over this. So you could probably get something that was about a 1/4 inch to a 5/16, and if it's that stuff that shrinks down really good, like the 3:1 or whatever it is, you could probably use that on there too. Alright, so and with that, we're going to plug this into one of these little guys right here. Now, let's see which one. Which way does it go in there? I think it goes in there this way. Okay. So it goes in there like that. No, it doesn't go in there like that. It's got a thing right on there that says positive and negative. And that is not the positive wire or the negative wire that was in there. It just did not want to go in there for some reason. Let's see. You've got to be kidding me. Okay, so the stupidity continues. So I didn't even see it when I dumped these parts out here for the fan kit. There's these two tiny little clear pieces of heat shrink tubing, and I didn't even see them in there. These are basically just to put right here between the where the fan case, or excuse me, where the cover goes and the heat sink case here. It's just to put in that little area right there. So what I did here with running that over there is still good and better and probably the best idea, since, like I said, I didn't even see these things in there. So anyways, so that solves that little mystery, kind of, but it still doesn't answer the questions about the fans not being wired right. And then I lift up this little label here underneath here, and I see right next to the red there's like a negative looking terminal, or a negative mark, and I can't quite see on the black wire to see if there's a positive one on that. So I don't know if these things are wired backwards, you know, or what. I don't know. Kind of frustrating, because it's just like, you don't want to have to sit and deal with that crap. I mean, maybe they're just wired backwards. So I guess yeah, I may just have to hook them up and see. I mean, I don't think it's going to cook the radio. I mean, I know the radio's right. It's just that these are not wired right, so. But I'm wondering if it's, you know, that the fan's right either, so. If all the fans are like that, though, you would for sure think it would be in the instructions. And it doesn't say anything about that in the instructions. It mentions the heat shrink that comes in the kit, and so I looked really close and I saw these two little clear pieces there. So, all right, I'm going to figure out what to do with this little fan situation here. We'll do a little research real quick and see what's going on with it. Okay, well, I really didn't learn much, except if I go ahead and put this fan on here like this, how did I have that? If I have it on there like this, I had it to where I could route it, but now I can't because I forgot what I did. I think I just, oh, that's how I had it, just so that this would route like that. So that'll work for that once that's shrunk on there. So I'm just going to go ahead and shrink this on there. Again, to make matters even more confusing, it's really going to be hard to see in this picture, but if you could see this in person, the instructions, you would see that it clearly shows the red is on the opposite side going into the fan motor there than the black. So that just makes it even more confusing. So I'm thinking maybe these fans, like I said, if you lift up that sticker, you can see on the one part of the little board in there, it looks like a negative, and that's the one that the positive wire is going to. So it could just be that these things are wired backwards, and to compensate for it, they, you know, switched it on this end of the plug here, so when it plugs in, it would be positive to positive and negative to negative. So we'll just have to see. So I guess if I hook it up, I don't know what happens if you hook one of these up backwards. I mean, my biggest concern obviously is the radio, but since you're introducing power to it, hopefully, you know, it just gets ridiculous after a while. I mean, maybe I'm the only one that just happened to notice that that's positive and negative on there and everybody else just plugged them in. Because there's nothing you have to do. I mean, if you just don't look and you just plug them in and that's how it is and it ain't no big thing. Okay. Alright. Remember to put our grill on so that it's, you know, kind of standing up, pushing up. I'll just go ahead and put 2 of these screws in here. Okay. Alright, again, these seem to be going in pretty well by hand, so that's always a good sign. Again, I'd prefer a Phillips head or some type of a, you know, other head on here, but this will work. Okay, one more. And again, I didn't tighten these down, these other ones down all the way. You want to leave a little bit of wiggle room. Then I'm going to have to plug it in. I'm going to try and turn the temperature setting thing down to where, you know, the fans kick on as soon as possible. I'm not quite sure how that works, if you can just turn them to where they're on all the time, or if you can just really lower the temperature. But boy, I'll tell you what, and just messing around with this thing last night, this is a really neat radio. It really is. It's got a lot of really cool features. Again, for something that's, you know, if you're going to venture into something that's newer, you know, this is a pretty cool deal. The variable power setting on it is just neat. I mean, you can basically act like it's a stock CB radio. It'll dead key at like 3 watts and swing to like 4.5, 5. Or you can have it to where it's like a single final CB that you've turned up a little bit and it'll dead key about 4 and swing to about 10 or 12. Or you can have it off and it'll dead key around 18 and swing to, you know, up to where it's supposed to go. Which my meter's very, I'm not even going to tell you what this thing swings up to on my meter because my meter's so stiff, the kind that I use. But they're that way on everything, so I know it's doing what it's supposed to do. So, okay, we got this shrunk on there. Pretty good. And you know what? I think I was going to have this on here clocked the other way, but I don't really think it's going to matter. I mean, that's going to be fine, as opposed to coming up from the side. Battery died. Okay, so again, I could have turned this fan the other way and had the this thing running up the side a little bit. I don't really know that it really matters. It's going to be tucked in there pretty good either way. So, yeah, I don't really think that's going to make a big difference there. Okay, so let's plug these things in here. I'm just going to plug them in the way that they fit. Just assume. Okay, well, we're going to want to plug this one in over here because this wire is too short to go to that plug. So we're going to have to take this wire and plug it into this one. Okay, all right. Well, the shrink wrap thing worked really well. I'm quite pleased with that. It tucks it in there really nice. You know, good deal there. So I don't need to be in here for anything else, and I'm just going to assume that they wired those backwards, and we'll just see. So. Yeah, definitely, probably a pretty good idea to put the shrink wrap over here. You know, you could even take this clear stuff that they gave you and put it over there and shrink it over that again if you wanted to. This stuff's pretty thick, so. But yeah, with this being metal here and this lid here, you know, especially if it's seeing any mobile use or going to be moving around a lot, you would definitely want to make sure that was. Just want to check and make sure this is. You would definitely want to make sure that that's. You know, secure. If you have absolutely nothing else and you're in a hurry, you know, electrical tape will work, just something. Okay, let's go ahead and put this thing back on. Sure had the covers, sure had it, for a newer radio, sure had it apart a lot. Funny how that works, right? Put this one on back here. Yeah, I'm leaving it up to faith with these things being wired backwards because I don't know, I just when I looked in there and saw that little negative sign there, this screw here is being really stubborn for some strange reason. Again, once in a while, these holes, you know, maybe I got these a little bit too tight over here. You really got to be careful. Make sure they're all in there before you start snugging them up. Yeah, I just wanted to be a little bit more relaxed. You can get these case screws in, you know, bags of, you know, 10 or 20 or 100 or whatever. You get them in black and you can get them in like chrome or whatever. Not a bad idea to pick up a bag of them because, you know, they do get goofed up after a while, and it's best to just chuck them and put some new ones in there. You can see these are all going in there real nice now. Just snug that one up a little bit. So I had this other cover off too, so. Okay. And one on the middle on the bottom here. Just check it. Okay. Alright, so got our fans bolted on there. So now I guess what we need to do is plug this thing in and see what we got. The instruction manual is pretty good too, just FYI. I mean, I needed to learn how to turn on the echo and the talkback and how to adjust all that, you know, and it told me so. Okay, so okay, let's turn this thing on. Let's see where we are at here. Okay, so let's see here. And let's see, where were we going? Color, reset, temperature protection. Okay, let's see. It goes all the way up to, I think that it was set at 50. It goes all the way up to, and then it starts over again at 20. So we'll just leave it there. Oh, they're starting to come on. So let's see what we got here. Well, they must be wired wrong, or like they were, you know, because they're blowing air, so they wouldn't be pushing air if they weren't flowing the right direction. So I'm sure you can probably hear them. They're not super loud. They're not super quiet. And again, you can get different grades of fans for these things. The only thing you got to make sure is what plug you've got on the end of them. In a case like this, you know, in a case like this, I don't know, you could take a needle and get that little white plug off the end of there, I'm pretty sure, but you can kind of hear those fans, but I don't think it's anything you're going to hear probably if you're talking on it or on the radio. And especially with that noise reduction mic on there. Noise reduction circuitry, I believe, is what that stands for. Alright, so we got the thing out of the box. We cracked it open. We took both covers off. We soldered our wire across there. And we got our menu password and we got it converted. Then I played around with it for a little while, and then we came back and put these fans on there, and again, you just plug them in the way that the plugs fit. I just happened to notice that the board, you know, on the radio said positive and negative, and that's not the right way, but apparently, like I said, the fans are wired backwards, and I noticed that by peeling up the label on one of these fans. You could clearly see the red wire was going to a little negative part on the little board in the fan, so that just kind of made me figure they were just wired backwards, so whatever. It's just, you know, another thing to watch for. But yeah, they feel like they're moving some air there, for sure. And again, that's set cool. That's basically set for them to run all the time. I'm not sure at what point. Let's hit the button here and see where they shut off. So 20, and again, you can put the temperature readout in Fahrenheit, but it's always going to control the fans, I believe, in Celsius, or show the fan temperature in Celsius, something like that. Whenever you get turned to something and you want to adjust it, once you're on it, you push on it, and it'll flash. And if you don't do something within about 5 or 6 seconds, it'll. Okay, let's try 30. See if they shut off. Okay, well, they're still running at 30. Like I said, I believe it was set at 50 from the factory. I changed it to 40. And then after I yeah, okay, they go off at 40, so let's try. $35, they're still off. I mean, they'll come on or off I mean, you don't have to just get out of the menu. You can turn this thing up, and you turn it up a little past, and then they'll shut off, and then you can turn it down. Like, okay, it's still off at 35. Now they're kicking on at 26. Crank it back up to like 40, and they'll shut off again after a second, probably. Yeah, now they're shutting off. So this thing knows what it's doing. So yeah, that's great to play with, because you can just turn this thing, whatever the temperature is, you know, whatever you're currently doing. If you want the fans to, I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by my camera shutting off again. This is really great, because no matter what the temperature is in the room you're in, if you say you're in the room and you want the fans to come on, you can get into your menu here, click it, and I want them to come on, so I'll turn it down until they get ready to come on. Now they're kicking on. You can probably turn it up a few more and then get out of there, you know what I mean? Or say they're on and I really don't want them on now, I want to turn them off, so we'll go up. Now they're off, maybe click it back down a couple and get out of there. So yeah, that's really cool that it'll do it in real time like that. You don't have to really guess or fiddle around with it, so that's pretty cool. So anyways, so okay, that's pretty much going to end this video as far as this goes. Like I said, I've learned a lot with the menu features and how all that stuff works, so I'll come back and go through all the features and some other stuff. Like I said, so far I'm really liking this radio, for a lot of different reasons, and I'll get into all that. And I'll try and give it a more of a proper review and introduction here. This was like I said, for a new radio, this was a good 45 minutes to an hour of some hacking going on here. So, all right, with that Pompeo, British Columbia, which I don't know anybody in Pompeo, British Columbia. So, with that, like I said, I'll get it together here and get this cleaned up and go through the menu options some more and come back and give it a little more of a proper introduction and proper review. And like I said, this was for a new radio. This was a lot of stuff going on there. Having the covers off, soldering the wire, and putting the fans in there, and making sure those weren't screwed up. So once again, that's just kind of the way it goes. So. Alright, well, got the work area cleaned up a little bit here. Got this thing going. That's definitely, that's a nice little radio right there, that's for sure. It really is. There's a lot of things I really like about it. It's fairly intuitive to use as far as the menu and all that. There are some things you need to look up in the manual, but once you look those up and do them a few times, it's pretty easy to remember. And at least you've got a decent manual with it, so yeah, it's a nice little radio there for sure. So I think I'm going to be happy with it. I did want to, let's see if I can do this here. I'm going to have to, I was going to kind of try and show what it looks like here. That's about how much length it added there. Here's your original heat sink here, and then your fans coming off there. So they come off, you probably get about another inch that they come off of there. And again, you could probably put some shorter fans on if you got some shorter screws, or some longer ones, and put some spacers. There's probably a lot of different things you could do. Again, the heat shrink tubing around the wiring seemed to work pretty good and solve any problems that you'd be having underneath there with these wires there. That all seems to have turned out pretty well there, so no complaints with that. So again, the fans seem to work pretty good. sure there's quieter fans, but I'm sure there's noisier fans. So, again, that's kind of what we got going on there. All right. Like I said, pretty nice little radio there.